Three elegant women stepped into the exclusive haven of the Lux Table, a high-end restaurant in the heart of the city, expecting perfection in every detail. What they didn't foresee was how their evening would take an unforeseen turn because of the waiter serving their table. Their harsh comments and mocking laughter directed at him would soon lead to a surprising twist that none of them could have predicted. Stay with us to see how this captivating story unfolds. And while you're here, let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to hear from you. The Lux Table radiated opulence. The soft glow of its crystal chandeliers reflected off polished ebony furniture, while bouquets of fresh lilies adorned every table. The subtle aroma of saffron and herbs wafted from the open kitchen, where the chefs worked with precision. Leading the trio was Celeste Hartley, her gown sparkling in the golden light. Her companions, Bianca and Lila, followed, their laughter punctuating the quiet hum of the restaurant. The maitre d' greeted them warmly, leading them to a coveted corner table. They exchanged looks of satisfaction, noticing the admiring, or was it envious, gazes from other patrons. Tonight, they were celebrating Celeste's latest triumph, the successful launch of a luxury boutique. Celeste opened the menu with a flourish, scanning its contents critically. "Ladies," she said, her tone dripping with confidence, "this restaurant has a reputation to maintain. Let's see if they can live up to it." As they settled in, a waiter approached their table, carrying a tray with practiced care. Oliver Grant, a young man with a quiet but kind demeanor, offered a polite greeting. "Good evening. May I serve the wine?" Celeste barely acknowledged him, waving her hand dismissively. "Just be quick about it," she replied, her eyes never leaving the menu. Oliver began to pour the wine, his focus unwavering. However, his hand faltered slightly, and a tiny droplet splashed onto the white tablecloth. Celeste's gasp echoed in the room, and she placed her hand dramatically over her chest. "Unbelievable!" she exclaimed, her voice cutting through the restaurant's gentle murmur. "Is this amateur hour? A place like this should hire staff who actually know what they're doing." Bianca chuckled, leaning toward Celeste. "I wouldn't be surprised if he got lost on his way to the kitchen," she joked, earning a laugh from Lila. Flustered, Oliver quickly reached for a cloth. "I'm so sorry. I'll clean this immediately," he apologized. Celeste snatched the cloth from him, shaking her head in irritation. "Don't bother. Clearly, this is beyond your skill set. Get someone competent to take over." Oliver stood frozen, his face flushed with embarrassment. The surrounding tables had fallen silent, diners watching the scene with a mix of discomfort and curiosity. What Celeste didn't notice was the figure emerging from the kitchen, his gaze fixed on their table. Daniel Grant, the restaurant's head chef and co-owner, had been observing the scene unfold. The sharp sting of seeing his younger brother humiliated in front of a crowd ignited something within him. He'd spent years building the Lux Table into a sanctuary of respect and excellence, and watching someone like Celeste tarnish that was intolerable. Daniel had always been protective of Oliver, who had joined the restaurant to learn the intricacies of fine dining. Oliver wasn't just a waiter. He had been instrumental in the Lux Table's journey, from painting its walls during the renovation to suggesting dishes for the menu. Daniel knew how much this job meant to Oliver, not just as employment, but as a stepping stone toward his dreams. Calmly wiping his hands on his apron, Daniel stepped forward, his imposing presence commanding attention. The murmur of the restaurant died down as the diners realized that something significant was about to happen. Approaching the table, Daniel's expression was composed but resolute. Celeste, noticing him, straightened in her chair, though her confident demeanor faltered slightly under his piercing gaze. "Good evening, ladies," Daniel began, his voice steady and firm. "I understand there's been a concern at this table." Celeste crossed her arms, attempting to reclaim the upper hand. "Yes, there has. Your waiter has been utterly incompetent. He spilled wine on the table, something that should never happen in an establishment of this caliber. It's unacceptable." Bianca and Lila remained silent, their earlier amusement replaced by unease. Daniel nodded thoughtfully before turning to Oliver, who stood a step behind him, his head bowed. "Oliver," Daniel said gently, "please step aside. I'll handle this." Looking back at Celeste, Daniel's tone hardened, though it remained professional. That waiter you just berated is my brother. Celeste's smirk faltered briefly, but she quickly covered it with a forced laugh. Oh well, that makes sense, she said, her tone lacking its usual confidence. Daniel didn't react. What it explains, he began, his voice calm but firm, is that Oliver is one of the hardest working people I know. He's here every day, giving his all to ensure guests like you have a wonderful experience. Yet, you chose to ridicule him over a single drop of wine. Lila shifted uncomfortably, murmuring, I think this is just a misunderstanding. Daniel's gaze sharpened. No, it isn't. I heard everything. Turning back to Celeste, he continued, respect isn't reserved for a few. It's the foundation of this restaurant. If you can't offer it to my staff, you don't belong here. The silence was palpable. Celeste opened her mouth, but Daniel pressed on. You came in expecting perfection, but perfection isn't just about service or food. It's about how we treat each other, with dignity and kindness. My brother spilled a drop of wine, but tonight you've spilled far more, decency and integrity. The room erupted in applause, leaving Celeste visibly flustered. Bianca and Lila exchanged uneasy looks, their bravado gone. Finally, Celeste managed a shaky, I didn't mean it that way. It was a misunderstanding. I respect your staff. Daniel's expression remained firm. Respect isn't claimed after the fact. It's shown in your actions. He paused before continuing, his tone softening. This restaurant thrives because of people like Oliver. No one is above showing them the respect they deserve. Nearby, Oliver stepped forward. Thank you, chef, he said quietly, meeting Daniel's gaze. I appreciate it. Daniel turned to him, offering a small smile. You didn't deserve any of that. You handled yourself well, and I'm proud of you. The applause grew louder, some diners standing in support. Celeste flushed as she looked around, realizing the room had firmly sided with Daniel and Oliver. I'd like to apologize, she said, her voice subdued. I wasn't thinking. Daniel studied her for a moment and nodded. Apology accepted. Let this be a lesson. What matters isn't the mistakes we make, but how we respond to them. Lila chimed in eagerly. We're sorry. We learned something tonight. Daniel nodded again, addressing the table. Good. Success doesn't excuse disrespect. It demands humility. As Daniel returned to the kitchen, he gave Oliver an encouraging nod. The restaurant returned to its hum of conversation, though the lesson lingered in the air. Celeste sat quietly, staring at her wine, the weight of the moment forcing reflection. Would she learn from it, or would her pride prevail? Oliver walked away, his head held high, his confidence restored. Daniel glanced back one last time, sharing a silent moment of affirmation with his brother. The Lux table's hum resumed, but the lesson of respect was etched into the hearts of all who witnessed it. Oliver walked away, his head held high, his confidence restored. Daniel glanced back one last time, sharing a silent moment of affirmation with his brother. The Lux table's hum resumed, but the lesson of respect was etched into the hearts of all who witnessed it. In the end, true luxury isn't defined by wealth or status, but by the grace with which we treat others. Moments like these remind us that character speaks louder than power, and respect is the greatest currency of all. At the Lux table, humility and dignity remain the finest marks of excellence.